So, here it says in verse 15, don't plot against the dwelling of the righteous. Don't lie in wait against the dwelling of the righteous. Proverbs 24:15. What does it mean to lie in wait? It says about Jesus that the Pharisees were always waiting to catch one word that falls. Who is the person who lies in wait for a righteous man to fall? Do you know that whenever a person preaches victory over sin, wholeheartedly, with all of his heart, not just this wee, teeny-weeny voice, but when we speak about it wholeheartedly, there are many believers who don't like it and who call it heresy because they themselves are defeated. You know what such believers are waiting for? They are waiting for this man who preaches victory to fall. And what does the Bible call such a person who waits for a righteous man to fall? What does the Word of God call such a person? A what? A wicked man. Is he a believer? Far from it. He's a wicked man. Whenever we wait for someone to fall, you're a wicked person. That can happen. You don't like something in someone, and he falls and you're a bit happy. You're a wicked person. Don't call yourself a believer. A wicked person waiting for someone to fall. And it goes on to say in verse 17, being happy when someone falls. Don't rejoice, even if it's your enemy who falls. Don't let your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord see it. You think the Lord doesn't see that? You think the Lord doesn't see that little spark of delight that came into your heart when somebody fell? When instead of being grieved, you were a little happy when some misfortune came upon someone with whom you didn't have a good relationship? Beware of that, brothers and sisters. What is an enemy? Someone, it can be a brother in the church with whom your relationship is a bit cold. That can happen to any of us, and when it happens, particularly if the other person's done something against you or said something against you, you know what you should do? This is what I do. I say, Lord, help me here. Help me in my relationship with this person, because I fear that I will fall. I fear that there might be something in that. Take that seriously. It's very, very dangerous when you are a righteous person and somebody has done something against you. You need to cry out to God for help in such a situation, that there should not even be a slight coloring of your attitude towards that person. That will show that you're a God-fearing person. Have you cried out like that? Yeah, I've done that. I heard someone said something or somebody did something against me, and I say, oh my God, please help me now. It's easy to say I've got nothing against him, that's true, but I don't know the corruption that dwells in my flesh. Please help me, Lord, that I shall now behave like Jesus Christ towards that person from now on. Particularly, let me be careful to behave really like Jesus towards that person. Otherwise, I'll pollute myself, I'll corrupt myself, and just go around like a humbug and a hypocrite, having a good testimony saying, I've got nothing against anybody. Humbug! No, it's so easy for wrong attitudes to come. And that's happened. That's happened in our midst, brothers and sisters. You know it's happened to you. And why did it happen? Because when you saw somebody saying or doing something, you say, yeah, I'm strong. That's why you fell. If you had a sense of your own weakness and cried out to God for help, God would have helped you and you wouldn't have fallen. But you fell into a wrong attitude, which finally came out in wrong words. When will we learn? When will we learn? How many years have gone by? When will we realize that we are so weak and so corrupt that we cry out to God for help immediately? That was why God heard Jesus' prayers. He was so weak, he cried out for help all the time because he feared to sin even in a wrong attitude, even in a slight coloring of an unloving attitude towards another person. Very important. Do not rejoice when your enemy falls. Do not let your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord see it. He sees it, and he's displeased. With whom? Displeased with this person who is watching, this person who's been lying in wait. And he turns away his anger from that man, he turns it on me now. You see, this spirit of vengeance is there very deeply in our flesh. When someone has done something against me or said something against me, I need to realize how weak I am at that time. Lord, vengeance dwells in my flesh. Please help me. I won't take revenge by killing him. I'm not so crude. It is in subtle ways. It can be just in being a little happy when he falls. It's the same spirit as that man who commits murder in vengeance. No different. Only thing, I don't go that far. I stop a little this side. Just little delight when something goes wrong with that person who's done something against me. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. He who is interested in keeping his heart clean, who wants a testimony from his conscience, not a testimony from people. Remember this, my dear brothers and sisters, we are most in danger when someone has said or done something against us. We are in danger of really becoming polluted in our heart towards that person, unless we live in fear and cry out to God to help us in our weakness. Let no one think that he will stand, because he will fall on his own. Very important. This vengeance comes out in so many ways. In so many ways, I tell you, if we get light on it, we will see how husbands take revenge on their wives. Not by killing them. You read about these people who burned their wives because the wives didn't bring dowry, and we shrink back and say, oh, how terrible, I would never do such a thing. But we can take revenge on our wives in so many other ways without burning them. The same spirit that made that fellow burn his wife, we do it in more refined ways, where the police can't catch us. God sees it. And you see, why did you say that to your wife? Wasn't that revenge for what she did yesterday or said day before yesterday? Or to your husband? Revenge. Serve the food late or cold, purposely. So many things. And you got, of course, excuses for it. I had so much work to do. And you know that's not the thing. It's a little trying to hit back. It's the new and living way type of hitting back. Humbug, hypocrisy, deception. All these NAL ways of revenge. Brothers and sisters, ask God for light on all these things. I find that vengeance is a thing which doesn't go away easily. It can come in so many subtle ways. If we don't see our weakness here and cry out for help. Against our own children, we can take vengeance, and they are helpless. A wife or a husband can hit back. What about poor children? They can't hit back. And we can take revenge on them because they made life inconvenient for us in some way. So many things, and against brothers and sisters. And let not someone think that he is free from this danger. We are all in tremendous danger in this area. If we don't realize our weakness and cry out for help, we shall fall. Verse 19 and 20. Do not fret yourself because of evildoers, or be envious of the wicked, for there will be no future for the evil man. The lamp for the wicked will be put out. And there we see, there again the thing mentioned in verse 1, this danger of being envious because another person who's unrighteous, say somebody who's unrighteous in the office, seems to find it easier. Life is so difficult for you because you're so righteous. You won't give money for that Hindu festival. And so life becomes a little more difficult for you. It would be easier if you were unrighteous and gave money for that Hindu festival. Yeah, don't be envious, for there will be no future for that evil man. Finally, the lamp of the wicked will be put out. It's better to suffer a little and stand for righteousness. See what it says in Psalm 17. Let me read that to you. Psalm 17. verse 14 and 15 in the Living Bible. It reads like this. These men of the world, whose only concern is earthly gain, these men whom you have filled with your treasures, God has allowed them to have treasures, so that their children and grandchildren are rich and prosperous. God has allowed them, their children and their grandchildren, of these wicked people, to be rich and prosperous. But, David says, as for me, my contentment is not in wealth, verse 15, but in seeing you and knowing that all is well between you and me. And when I awake in heaven, then I will be fully satisfied, for I will see you face to face. Blessed is the new covenant brother who can say what that old covenant brother said with lesser light. In Psalm 17 verse 14 and 15. Never to compare our lot with the unrighteous man. And now we come to the last of the 30 statements. We saw here in verse 1 and 2 statement number 19, verse 3 and 4 was statement number 20, verse 21, verses 5 and 6 was the 21st, verse 7 was the 22nd, verse 8 and 9 was the 23rd, and verse 10 was the 24th, verse 11 and 12 the 25th, verse 13 and 14 the 26th, verse 15 and 16 the 27th, and verse 17 and 18 the 28th, verse 19 and 20 the 29th, and now we come to the last of these 30 statements, which I said was like a mini book of Proverbs. That is verse 21 and 22. I want to read that in the Good News Bible. Fear the Lord, my son, and honor the king. That means fear God first and submit to the secular authority. It may not be the king, it may be the boss in your office. Honor him. Fear the Lord and the king. Have nothing to do. Listen to this. A word for our day. Have nothing to do with people who rebel against God or who rebel against the boss. Don't have fellowship with them. That's why I say it's very dangerous for a Christian to join a trade union if it involves the spirit of rebellion against authority. Have nothing to do with people who rebel against the Lord or against the king or the boss. Such men could be ruined in a moment. Do you realize the disaster that God or the king can cause? That's the last statement he says there. That spirit of rebellion. Be careful about rebellion against your parents. Your father is king in the home. Be careful that you don't rebel against him, children, and your mother. Be careful, wives, that you don't rebel against the one whom God has placed as king over you in your house. I don't know how many wives see their husbands as the king God has placed over them. Be careful. Have nothing to do with that spirit of rebellion or rebellion in the church. We read about Korah, who stood against Moses. Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. They said, what does this Moses think he is? He's not the only one through whom God speaks. God speaks through us also. Moses just kept quiet. He fell on his face. And God said, all right, I'll teach these fellows a lesson. I'll teach them through whom I speak. And Moses said, tell all the congregation of Israel to stand back. And that's the only case recorded in the Bible. The only case recorded in the Bible where a man went alive into hell. Korah, Dathan, Abiram, and their families. Alive into hell. Just like Enoch and Elijah went straight up to heaven. One case in the scriptures. The spirit of rebellion against authority. Be careful. Be careful. It's good to humble ourselves before God. Be careful, for this spirit of rebellion is spreading all over. In homes, in schools, in colleges, in factories, in churches, everywhere. We have to be careful.